in football, right? You saw someone going for like the fourth down.
Mm-hmm.
So in contracts.
Oh, what is taking the risk of going forward on fourth down?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's when you only have one offer on the table and you're trying to ask for more, because the risk is just like a fourth down. If you
like agents or the attorneys behind the casinos, like who's actually like who would you say is the main? I'll just play all the people, the athletes, the players, and the attorneys.
Mm-hmm. So I think like the main players in the NFL that people don't really always consider is the owners and the commissioner's impact on that, right?
There's a difference between playing the game and playing to win. Some players never figure that line. In a 32 structured NFL team, some players play the longevity game, others play on the fast lane. Today, we're going to be talking to an NFL licensed agent who's going to tell you the difference between the winners and the losers. I'm Oluwaseyi, and this is He Who Wears the Cap. Hi, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, sure. My name is Oluwaseyi. You're host of the podcast He Who Wears the Cap, and I'm here with
Stephen Vanyo, entertainment lawyer and sports agent.
Nice. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. It's a lovely Friday the 13th here in our beautiful city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
There we go.
Haven't stepped on any cracks in the sidewalk and no black cats have crossed my path yet. So it's a pretty good Friday the 13th for me so far.
Thank you. I love how you were flexible, with everything.
Of course. Wouldn't miss this.
Right. So the title is actually Play to Win, and it's some NFL players come to the NFL broke. Others leave with generational wealth. I'm here with Stephen, as I already said. And we're going to jump straight at it, business minded. And I kind of have great questions for you, and I hope I'm not hitting you. I hope I'm not striking no nerve though.
No, it's all good. You can ask whatever you want.
Right. So in the NFL world, who's actually playing the game? Right. The athletes, I see like the interplay of the athletes, the agents or the attorneys behind the casinos. Like who's actually like who would you say is the main? I'll just play all the people, the athletes, the players, and the attorneys.
Mm-hmm. So I think like the main players in the NFL that people don't really always consider is the owners and the commissioner's impact on that, right? Like the commissioner is technically employed by the owners. So when we talk about rule changes, when we talk about CBA negotiations, when we talk about whether or not we'll even add an 18th game to the schedule, which is the big thing that'll be happening, in the next decade, really that's at the behest of the owners. And then the other thing to figure out is American football has occupied a day of our week, right? Sundays for 18 to 22 weeks out of the year is the main thing that people focus on. However, have we fully captured the U.S. audience, and how does a company grow? Because that's what a company's value is their growth. So that's why we're seeing all these new international games. So in terms of these players behind the scenes that makes them think about ownership. Ownership determines whether you have a good team, a mediocre team, or a subpar team. And because of that, I think they're an underrated thought process between us and the agent community and as the players community is, if we can get inside the heads of what the owners want, what the owners are thinking of. Some are thinking just pure profit. NFL franchises are incredibly valuable. I buy it for one price today, I sell it for the next price tomorrow. How am I making money on a day-to-day basis? And then finally, just the prestige of it. There are only 32 of these teams in the world, and there are only 32 ownership groups that own these teams. No one owner owns multiple NFL franchises.
Also, no multiple ownership?
Right.
Gotcha.
And you can own teams across different leagues, but very rarely do you, if at all, we don't have it currently, do you see the same owner own multiple NFL franchises. For one, it ruins the competitive balance if there's any sort of like instinct of collusion. But the main thing to think about is, if we understand what these owner groups are saying and how they're thinking, that will allow us in the agent community to better advocate for the interests of the players. Because the NFL has now a growth problem. We now have to figure out the growth problem. So a company has to grow. And in America, we have captured fully the various age demographics,
Gotcha.
and NFL fandom goes across different religions, creeds, ethos, locations, wherever. How are you going to get more sponsorship dollars? How are you going to get more ad dollars? And also combined with the fact that on the whole, younger generations' participation in American football are declining. Similarly with the fact that the way that younger generations consume sports content is changing from sitting for a 3.5-hour TV broadcast to going things in bite-sized clips, bite-sized highlight packages. And that's why you see the NFL investing in TikTok and primarily in international games, because that's the only area where it really can grow. The NFL has tried throughout its history to expand into Europe through the implementation of NFL Europe, and now they're trying it out with having these mandatory international games that these team plays. But that is really the only people that can continue providing ticket sales, merchandise sales, and interest in the game, because you pretty much captured the entire American populace.
Gotcha.
So that's the only way you can grow.
Yeah. That actually answers that first question. I think catching up on what you said about fans just sitting at the TV every other Sunday. So it leads me to the next question. So where does the real competition happen? Does it happen during the week, the boardrooms, or next?
The real competition, I think, happens in the preparation. You know, I'm not a player myself. I can speak to my role as an agent, but I'm preparing all year long to figure out what opportunities are available to my player, what I can get them in based upon the participation of other players. Because again, NFL teams only have 53 players per 32 teams. I, as an agent, only receive a commission if my player is on the active roster, on the active 53-man squad. So I'm constantly preparing, and that's where the competitions are won, in the preparation. Same thing if I'm competing with other agents in recruiting and signing clientele, figuring out what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and most importantly, who am I competing against. I think now with social media, agents are able to see generally what other agents are sort of reaching out to players. In the olden days, you would have to see them walk out of the player's dorm room or out of their mom's house. So I think that's where really the competition happens, and I can't speak to the players exactly, but they do tons of preparation work. That's why we have one game a week. You have off the day after your game, and then the rest of the week and the rest of your season is preparing your bodies, preparing your minds, preparing your understanding, and you're preparing all year. So if you want to talk about where the real competition is, that is where.
So in football, you saw them go in for the fourth down. So in the contract negotiations, what does a fourth down gamble look like?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I can take it again. So in football, you saw them going for like the fourth down. So in contracts.
What is the taking the risk of going forward on fourth down? Yeah, I think it's when you only have one offer on the table and you're trying to ask for more. Because the risk is just like at fourth down, if you make it, you make it, but if you lose it, you lose it. And once that one and only offer pulls out of the game, then your client is left with nothing. So you have to understand, okay, if I'm going to take this risk, how am I calculating that risk? Do I know that they don't have a complimentary player on the background? Did somebody else that they really want already get signed? And because of that, understanding what your risk is, just like an NFL team does analytical work on whether or not they should go for it on fourth down, they also need to do it in the agent community like I do, where I'm like, okay, if my client only has one realistic offer, or one offer that we would only realistically take, I have to be calculated in what I ask for and how I ask for it. It's not just so much that, okay, I need to extract every last penny out of this NFL team. I need to make my client money, but I also need to help them get to a situation where they can succeed, thrive, and have a multi-year NFL career. You know, you can be the best player, but if you're not in the right scheme, whether that's offensively or defensively, if you're not in the right location, or if you end up in a staff where players ahead of you are already being paid, that limits your opportunities. And I think that's the thing too, where we consider American football specifically, this great meritocracy where supposedly the best players play. Well, sometimes they do, but a lot of times the person who's being paid the most ends up being played, and they have a longer leash to make mistakes, make screw-ups, and because of the money already invested, there's a less chance of them getting cut or getting traded, whereas if you're making less money, your opportunities are slim and in between, and your level of standard for what you need to do is much, much higher. You can make one mistake as an underpaid guy, as an undrafted free agent, and they could cut you the next day.
True.
Or if just, I always say this for wide receivers, I think that's the toughest position to play because everybody else has to do their job right for you to be able to do your job well. You can't catch the ball if the offensive line doesn't block, if the right play doesn't call it, if the quarterback doesn't put the ball in the right position, and also most importantly looks your way. While the other time there's 11 guys on the other side of the field trying to stop it. So in terms of fourth down contract negotiations, I just always try to put myself in that headspace of, okay, if there is only one offer, where's the best situation for my client football-wise? Where's the best situation for their mental health and their personal life? Because that does have an impact on your ability to go work out and do that. There are guys that are internally motivated, but if you're not used to cold weather, you're not exactly getting out in the cold and putting that work outside. Whereas if you're in the right situation, if you're a warm weather person, you'll do that too. But again, I think that going forward on fourth down in the contract negotiation, it's just an incredible risk. And it should only be taken when the analytics suggest that you should. I'm not a gambler. This is not business.
Hey, we gotta make sense.
And to be in sports in the background, you really shouldn't gamble at all. But I think taking calculated risk is much, much different than gambling and going forward on fourth down when you have no real backing behind you.
You have a great understanding of football. I still don't understand it. It leads me to the next question about, you're saying something about a rookie, like somebody who's, he's not really like well paid. He's underpaid in the roster, right? And if he called you today and says, I want to win in my career, what does that look like?
If you want to get out of your contract? Is that
No. If a rookie calls you today and the question you ask you, Stephen, I want to win in my career, what would be your answer to that?
To win in your career as like a rookie NFL player, the first thing you have to do is you have to maintain the work ethic that got you there. I don't think that all of a sudden just because you're in the pros means that you need a total revolution of what got you there. You're in the pros because of what you had done in high school and college. I don't care if you won a 12U child championship or anything like that. I care about what you did in high school and college and what work ethic you established to get there. Or in a lot of times, your natural talent will get there. So you have to figure out if you're a rookie player, is it because of the work ethic that got you there? Is it because of your natural talent? Or is it a combination of both of those things? So if you just somehow skated by on natural talent, now everybody's talented and the level of competition is significantly higher. And then secondly, you need to figure out who your real support system is and who are people that just are interested in it for the fame, the likes, and the clicks, right? So for the WAGs, you got to make sure that they really care about you and love you. And it's not just, hey, I like, the fact that I can go get this Tarte trip because I, have 1 million followers on TikTok because they want to see what cool outfits I wear. So I think that's the most important thing as a rookie too. Like if you are in a relationship, making sure that your relationship truly believes in yourself and your career and has a life outside of you, because it's a lot of weight on a rookie player or any NFL player, because then oftentimes it's not just playing for themselves. It's their family and their extended family and the pride that a parent gets, especially from raising a child that does make it to the NFL. It's the ultimate celebration of being a parent, which is, I have made all these decisions to leave my child to make this job. So if I'm a rookie, the other thing too is understanding is like, you no longer have to live through your parents. It is your job and your career, and you need to make that decision based upon what you and the people that you trust as your advisors, which includes your agent, comes to that determination. So parents don't always know best when it comes to the pros, unless by the grace of God you're a child of a professional athlete, which in that case is that too. But the final thing is, don't spend your money. I think you need a certain standard of living to be as a rookie to compete with the lifestyles of the NFL. Like, you shouldn't be living in a community where you're just going to get run up on all the time. There's not appropriate security. In a lot of places, you are the only game in town, meaning that you are the biggest celebrity on the block. And then other times, because of the fact that you play the sport with the helmet on, like, a lot of these guys can go unnoticed. So the other thing is, like, don't lose your sense of humanity because you aren't a big shot yet. You're still a rookie. You haven't proven anything yet, really. Until you prove yourself, you can't act like a proven star. And proven stars really only have the opportunity to go so far as their talent will take them. The more talent a player has, the longer leash they have to make mistakes off the field, make mistakes on the field. If you don't have that same long leash, then you as a rookie don't really have that same attitude. So a lot of times people complain about the unfairness of it all. Why does so-and-so get to show up late to work out, but I, get fined 10 grand if I show up 5 minutes late? Like, it is just a pure evaluation upon how much they're paying you and what your perceived level of talent is. The NFL, just like all major sports, has become a lot of very, very, very high level paying contracts and then a very, very lot of low and underpaying contracts. That seems to be the formula across sports for teams to win games. If you look at the Dodgers, their payroll is insane, but they don't have a salary cap, so they can afford to play multiple big guys, and then they fill out the rest of the roster with lower paid guys. The NFL, you look at it too, and there's again a lot of high paying guys and not a lot of what I call middle class guys that used to be making $8 million a year, now are lucky to be making $6 And there's a lot of rookie turnover and rookie scale contracts, which is the backbone of any NFL roster. So understanding that and understanding where you fit in that ecosystem and hierarchy, a lot of players call it the politics of the game, where they're usually used to it in college, or even you get introduced to it early. You're playing, pee-wee football, and there's 7 coaches. That means 7 of those 22 starting spots are taken. And that's just the politics of it all. So rather than be upset by it or try to rail against the system, unfortunately, changing that would require change over generations of players. So you as a rookie, to be successful, to win, you need to understand where you fit at in that system, where you fit in the salary cap, where you are at in the depth chart, and realistically understanding what you can do to move up the depth chart. Sometimes there's no shot you're moving up the depth chart. If a guy is being paid as a number 1 wide receiver, that's the number 1 wide receiver until proven otherwise. If you're a backup quarterback and the team has just made your starting quarterback top 5 at his position, it's very unlikely to do that, and that starting quarterback will be given every chance to fail. So for a rookie, a lot of rookies come in usually from they were the best player in their high school. A lot of times they were the best player in their college, if not one of the top 4 or 5 best. And then coming into that new system, they have to prove themselves all over again. In a much more difficult environment, in a much more callous environment, guys will get cut. You could be writhing in pain with your ACL, and then the next thing the GM's calling saying to your agent, hey, we're going to release you and we're going to give you a settlement of your contract so we can get you off the team. And there's nothing you can really do about it. What are you going to do? Not take the money? Especially if they're going to cut you anyway. So I think that for rookies to win, just holding themselves back, looking for the people that they trust, and truly understanding where they sit at is going to be the thing that sets them apart to win. I think the rookies that don't are the ones that have delusional confidence in themselves. So there is such a thing called irrational confidence, which I think people need to have to be successful in this business, because the statistics are such that you're not making the NFL, really, such a low likelihood of making the NFL. For me in the agent world, when I took the certification exam, which is just basically a test that says, I know the basics of the CBA, I know the basics of the performance enhancing drug policy, I know the basics of how this business works. I only had 38% of the test takers that passed it. So that means there was another 62% that failed. These included guys that played. These are guys that were taught by big time agencies. And so because of that, it's very unlikely statistically that someone can make a living doing the type of work that I do. And so I'm very blessed to do that, and I understand what it takes to get there, and the luck and the connections that have helped me grow along the way to do so.
Yeah, for every effort, there should be grace, there should be a blessing that attached to it. It should be the rewards of those hard work. And your question actually, what the last answer well, the buzzword was a support system. I mean, a support system. I love how you said that. So it's just, I think it also ties into my next question about. So coaches have playbooks, right? And do elite sports attorney have legal playbooks where when negotiating deals or resolving disputes?
Playbooks? I think anybody that uses a playbook as a negotiator is bound to fail, because when the other side doesn't follow what you expect them to, then you're scrambling through your playbook of what to do. I think sales culture has allowed for this idea, okay, here's a magic script. If I say these 3 things, I'll be able to close this deal rather than do that. But really, the playbook is tailored to your opponent.
Gotcha.
So what I try to do, and I don't even like to use the word opponent, because my style of deal making is, if you go scorched earth and you just try to do total victory at all costs, when in every little deal point, never give, never be understanding, never meet somewhere in the middle, you're never going to close deals. And if you do, you're never going to be able to negotiate with that partner again. You know, you look at the way that head coaches are, and some head coaches will coach for many years for one team, they'll get fired, they'll coach for another team, they'll get back. You know, Jim Harbaugh started off coaching in the NFL, and he went to college, and now he's back in the NFL. You know, other coaches that are seen as losers or disgraced end up getting other jobs.
Right.
So you're going to be dealing with these people on a consistent basis.
Right.
So following one set playbook for each instance is not going to help you, because you are going to be dealing with the same people over and over and over again.
Yes.
And people that you deal with at the lowest level, where you're like, okay, well, and moving to NIL and college football, which I do, you know, a guy I dealt with at a lower level, HBCU, that was playing in Division I AA FCS, now just got hired by a big time program.
Nice.
So because of the reputation that I have with him and dealing with him, and he knows that I will send him quality players to look at, I will treat him with respect, and I'll do a fair deal that comes close, if not slightly exceeds my client's fair market value. He's more likely to take my call over the other thousands of people out there that are uncertified calling themselves NIL agents.
Right.
So taking a playbook and saying like, okay, here's how to do this type of deal, here's that type of deal, neglects the fact that you have to work with the circumstances of which you're given.
Gotcha.
There are players I've represented that have had not the best off the field history, and we have that baggage coming in. So if I try to follow my negotiation with a goody two shoes client that's having trouble in their life, you know, kisses their mom every day before class type of players, that's not going to work. So a playbook, it's not like I can run a bubble screen to the near side of the field and just have success that way. So I think as an agent, having a strict playbook that I would follow, or a set of script that I would follow, doesn't help my clients, it doesn't help me grow.
Gotcha.
So having certain tactics rather than plays and following a script, I think is helpful. I think that there are certain times where one of my negotiating tactics that I always do is I never make the first offer. So everybody's looking for me to say the first offer, because if I say something and then they say yes to it immediately, then they have my clients know to negotiate, and I have no idea what they're valuing my client at. I can project, you know, in the NFL, we have access to every contract, and I can say, okay, player with this many catches, at this size, at this height, in this system, at this age, should be projected to make this amount of money, whereas in the NIL space, a lot of what individual players are being paid aren't public record, right? Like the NFL is. So that's very helpful, and it saves a lot of time for the gamblers to yell at them. They just all assume that everybody's making $1 million. They really aren't. A good amount of people are, but you know, the average NIL compensation for a college athlete certainly isn't $1 million. So taking from that and looking there, I decide, okay, what I use their first offer to say is like, what do you actually value my client? What is the NFL? What is the NIL? What an offer is made will give you a sense of what is actually valued, and then it gives me a sense of where I can negotiate.
Right.
And then the other thing is, a lot of times people say, oh, one tactic could be you make a ridiculous first offer, they make a ridiculously low offer, you meet somewhere in the middle, everybody's happy. That's just a waste of everybody's time. And very rarely have I seen someone, at least on my side, I don't take negotiators seriously that throw out ridiculous numbers. Because I'm like, you're not being serious about this, you haven't done the preparation.
Right.
The preparation, I do that for every negotiation I'm involved in, whether it's me in the NFL and the NIL space in sports, whether it's pro boxing, whether it's music, whether it's influencers, whether it's esports, whether it's Twitch streamers and their brand deals that I'm doing. I never ever I never ever make the first offer.
Gotcha.
And I think that's one tactic that has been consistent across my practice.
Right.
But I never will follow the script, but I won't that mean I can't take different tactics and strategies and melt them together and do the preparation of the game plan.
Right, but do you usually just, from you use column to player, do you usually have a number beforehand.
Do I have a number of what we're trying to get to? Yes, I'll ask all my clients this question.
Just making sure.
Yeah, I'll ask my clients this question. If I could wave a magic wand, what do you want? And that's just sort of the baseline, the dream. And then I say, okay, here's the magic wish list.
Right.
Here's what we can achieve in
Right.
reality. And then I explain to my client why I think we can achieve this. At the end of the day, my clients are the boss.
Gotcha.
So whether that's, again, rappers, filmmakers, influencers, athletes, whoever, or whomever,
Gotcha.
they have a decision making on what deal they accept. It's my job to provide advice, to help get them there and explain why we're at where we're at. And then finally protect them from the hidden legalese which still exists in these types of contracts, especially at the NIL level.
Yep. He covered so much. Like I feel like he also covered my next question about NIL deals. I would just keep that on his face, like the issue of discipline or controversy, right? So when the public sees the headline, right, what's happening behind the scenes lately for the, like, God forbid, your best client is hit with the scandal. What would you do? What's happening behind the scenes?
So what's happening behind the scenes is a lot of times I'm working with other members of the team. If the client's well off enough, they'll usually have a publicist
Gotcha.
or what is called crisis management.
Gotcha.
So a lot of companies in the PR, the public relations and publicity space will offer what's called crisis management.
Nice.
So that's usually step one.
Nice.
Is figuring out, okay, from a public relations perspective, where are we at with the crisis management? And then we work together to figure out what makes sense from a public relations perspective. The next part is if the controversy involves a legal matter. I know what I know and I know what I don't know.
Fact.
And specifically, I'm not a criminal defense attorney, I'm not a family lawyer,
Right.
I'm not a white collar defense criminal.
Right.
So, if you, did a rug pull on some crypto scam thing and I wasn't aware of it, that's not my pay grade.
Right.
If something were to happen in the criminal realm, again, that's not my pay grade. So I work with those attorneys, and either they're within my network already or the player has brought them along. Ultimately, again, my clients are the decision makers, so it's not like I require anyone to work with any particular individual. Some people I get along with, some people I don't. And then you work together from the PR and the criminal perspective of what makes sense that protects our clients' legal interests and then the publicity interest. Scandals now seem to have such a short shelf life because of the constant 24-hour news cycle and the way that the internet moves on. As we've consumed news and scandal in bite-sized minute to 2 minute pieces, one scandal that occurs a day may be a 24-hour news story on Twitter, and then people will forget about it because they're moving on to the next controversy or the next news politics story. Because we consume everything in our culture in one space now, we're not getting up and watching Sports Center and then cartoons. All of that kind of floods together. So I think the other thing to understand the scandal is how does this fit into the larger cultural ecosystem? Gotcha. Athletes are moving to politics, politicians are trying to leverage athletes are trying to leverage music, movies, television, film, influencers, wherever, and you see the leagues really embracing this. Before, if you were to even try to post an NFL highlight, you were going to get that taken down from the internet immediately. Now, people will allow for fan edits and fan cams and everything of the like, because the NFL understands that we are trying to get the attention of the next generation. And this is where their attention goes from. So in dealing with a scandal, you have to understand, okay, if we go too heavy-handed into a response, now all of a sudden we're making the news story last longer than it has. And every player and agent has an inflated ego and thinks people are constantly talking about them. The reality is they're not. For certain things going on, it'll be, again, a 1 or 2 day news story, and if you just sort of let it fizzle out, a lot of times those scandals go away, and I think that's across all sports and across all spectrums. There's only been a few, I think, in the past year where, luckily, the other thing I try to do is, whenever possible, I try not to have clients that get themselves into scandals.
That's what you're saying.
I think that's what everybody would prefer, but again, the NFL and sports in particular is a business where there is a sort of win it damn near all cost mentality. And there are certain people that'll have that, but they'll give the player every chance to rehabilitate themselves before they're getting there. And there's other times where there are certain things that are so inexcusable that nobody will touch them. And there are instances where, I've had to fire clients over issues that they've done. And I've said, I no longer feel comfortable representing you. That's the thing, you know. When you sign with an agent, it's not like you're signing a deal for 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years. You're signing it so long as you have a good relationship with one another. And when my clients do bad things that I don't agree with and that they're proven to be at fault for it, it's not, I will just let them go.
Gotcha.
And I think that sometimes as an agent, that's the one thing to do too, is like when to cut bait of a client that isn't really helping you in your career. And the other times there too, like, just like now you see with the transfer portal, there's loyalty to a point, but for the most part, if an agent or player feels that working with somebody else will help them make more money or be a better situation for them, they'll do it. I think that's what kind of sets me apart. I'm a little too loyal in instances. So there are players that probably should have been out the door a little bit sooner.
That used to also right.
Or clients that should have been out the door sooner, but at the same time, it's like, look, you put your trust in me, you've entrusted me, and I'm going to ride with you regardless, because you can get cut, you can be on the couch for a year to do that. And I think that's just something I learned early in my career. You know, I learned under Chris Cabot and Lloyd Remick. Chris is Patrick Mahomes' agent. Lloyd Remick is a very legendary guy here in Philadelphia and nationally. He's represented a lot of top professional boxers, top musicians, top athletes. And because of that, they are loyal and they stick through their clients with bad times, because that's what's something when a client puts their faith in you, it's not just about getting, again, the most money possible. You try to build a quality relationship. You know, you're not always going to be friendly, you're not always going to be best friends off the field, but you should at least know and always that their client has trust and respect for you and knows that you have their back. And I would like to think that all my clients have that feeling about myself.
Nice. Oh, that's on free will. That actually gives me a different perspective too. You know, I think this actually just leads me to my last question, because I feel like you covered a lot. Questions I already thought about, your answers just captured it. So
sure.
The last question would just be, if you could give one advice to young athletes about playing the long game and truly winning, what would that be?
One piece of advice is enjoy it. I think that a lot of times now with the dollar signs around NIL, the fact that high school athletes can't get NIL dollars, I think the most important thing that an athlete should be doing is like, remember why you got into this game, that you're playing it for fun, that you got into it because it's fun, because that joy will carry you through the dark moments. And then certainly there are players who got into it because there was the one thing they were good at and everybody knew it was. If you were blessed with being 6'7" lean and the ability to run, sorry brother, you know, go hoop. You know, if you're born 6'2", 330 and you just have it in you and you're the son of a former wrestler and a track star, which I was, I just didn't get that. Yeah.
You didn't get those
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, no, I lost out. My dad was a D1 heavyweight wrestler at Lafayette College. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Nice.
Yeah, and then my mom was a cross country star in high school at Archbishop Ryan High School.
So you got a lot of competition in your family.
I'm thinking like when I'm 12, like I'm set. Like when I tell you, I think that I'm going to be the best athlete in the world. I'm like, oh, I'm either getting my mom's track skills or I'm getting my dad's strength and wrestling. I got neither.
I feel you.
So I then started to, you know, just think about music, and then as that music dream sort of subsided, I thought to myself, like, how am I going to stay involved with this industry I enjoy so much? And I've been blessed to be here at the law offices of Lloyd Remick and State Management Inc. This will be coming up my 8th year with the company.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I've learned a lot, and I've done so much, and I've gotten to meet so many cool people, both clients and on the other side of the negotiating table. I've done some weird stuff.
Hey,
you know, we'll talk later about a couple that wanted to get a divorce but still wanted to keep making Instagram content together, so they wanted to have a contract for how they would do that and maintain that relationship through the rest, as long as they felt that it was a time appropriate to announce for their fans. You know, an album of burp sounds that somebody wanted me to play, so that was pretty interesting.
Nice.
And anything else in between. So I know your question was advice about athletes, but I'm turning it more to like advice about career. And I think it's just the fact that I love this and I love the work, right? Like young athletes, like if you learn to fall in love with the process rather than the result, your life will be so much easier. Like I'm in love with the process. Like I'm in love with the time that first offer sent to that it's time that it's closed. I like the machinations of the minor deal points. You know, in football, what incentives are there? What are we doing this? How are we compared to other players in the league? Are we projecting that the market is going to raise based upon so-and-so hitting free agency next year, this trade setting a new standard? And I love that process. I love the process of figuring out, you know, how to creatively close a deal. And yes, like, do I call the scouts? Do I call the CEOs? Do I call the A&Rs? And is it cool to be in that space and get invited to events and be on great podcasts like this because you find my career interesting and build some other attorneys out there and agents out there in the real estate space or wherever? Yes, it's great. And I think just for an athlete or anybody involved in the creative space, like, you have to love the process more than the result if you want to be successful. And I think a lot of people get into it because they do like the result. They do like, if you're an athlete, you get the girls, you get the cars, you get the clothes, and you get to be on TV, you get fame, and it's the ultimate thing. And in exchange, you are sacrificing your long-term health. And that's just the reality of it. And for us in the support space, especially in the legal thing, like, we're getting the access, we're getting the fame, we're getting the tickets, we're getting the, you know, classic agent photo where we look at the client and I put my arm around him and I point at him as to clearly identify who's the athlete, who's the agent. Not that everybody obviously assumes I could be an NFL player, but you know, that's all great and good. But the most successful people are the ones that do fall in love with the process and fall in love with the work, and I'm thankful to be, you know, one of those people. And the other thing is, again, you gotta have, you know, an appetite for rejection. You know, there's a Guns N' Roses album, Appetite for Destruction. I flipped it and I call it having an appetite for rejection. Whether you're as an athlete, you're going to show up to that, you know, recruiting camp, and that coach is going to tell you, you stink, you're no good. No, I'm not giving you the scholarship here. No, I'm not doing this there. You know, you're not big enough. You're not fast enough. You're not small enough. You're not this way or whatever. And having an appetite for rejection and turning that to energy to grow and do will be helpful for you. I'm not saying you can't ever have like a time to mourn and a time to be sad. I have what I call the 24-hour rule. If I'm really mad about something, if I'm really bad about something, I allow myself to feel that way for 24 hours and then it's on to the next thing. And I like to think I follow it a lot, but there are certain times where I haven't.
We are human. We are human. Like, that's fallibility to be human. You know?
Right, and I think because of that, if you fall in love with the process and you have a good appetite for rejection, you will be successful.
That was powerful. Like, I feel like I don't need any more salary, and the goal at the end of the day is play to win, enjoy your result, like enjoy your process more than your result. Thank you for having me, Stephen.
Thank you.
I know this our conversation is gonna continue behind the scenes.
Yes.
So thank you for having me.
I'm honored to be a guest, and comment, like, subscribe.
Yup, sure.